Pep Guardiola is leaving Man City, and his coaching staff are already on the hunt for a new manager. Real Madrid have decided to sell Vinicius, and the top contender for the Brazilian is already known. Bayern are prepping a €75 million bid for Dani Olmo, while Xabi Alonso wants to snatch one of Liverpool's key midfielders. We're covering all that and more in today's video. Guys, let's try and hit 350 thumbs up on this one. Your support helps us make even better content for you. Let's get right into the latest transfer gossip. Pep Guardiola could be leaving Manchester City. The end of an era is closer than we thought. The Times has dropped a massive inside scoop. The 2025-26 season, which will be Pep's 10th at the club, is highly likely to be his last. Of course, the final decision hasn't been made yet, and we all know Pep is a man of his word. He always sees out his contracts. But insiders close to the situation are all saying the same thing. Leaving after the 10th season is the most logical and likely scenario. And you know what? There's a brutal truth to that. Let's just look at the facts. 10 years. That's a hell of a long time for any manager. And for a workaholic like Guardiola, it's an eternity. Just think back. His longest run before this was at Barcelona. 4 years. And after that, he looked like he'd just done a 20-year shift at a factory and took a year off just to recover. And now he's done a decade. In the most intense league in the world, he's won everything. Literally everything there is to win. The Premier League, he churns them out for fun. The Cups, got him, and most importantly, the big-eared Champions League trophy. What motivation can there be next? To win the Prem again? For him, that's just routine by now. Pep himself, by the way, recently said in plain terms that there are a ton of other things in life he wants to try. Traveling, family, and even learning French. Seriously, when a manager of his caliber starts talking about learning languages, that's the first alarm bell. It means football is slowly letting him go. But, as they say, there's a catch. And it's a big one. We've heard all this before. How many times have the insiders seen off Guardiola? 2, 3 times? Every time his contract was ending, it was the same old song. Pep's tired, Pep's leaving. And how did it always end? Exactly, with a new contract. Trying to predict this man's next move is a completely hopeless task. He could come out tomorrow and say, "I'm staying for another 5 years because I want to win the Premier League 10 times in a row." And we'd all just throw our hands up. And even if Pep does leave, Manchester City isn't a club that will be caught off guard. These guys plan years ahead. They've known for a long time that this day would come eventually, and they're already preparing. Remember the recent story with Vincent Kompany? Bayern suddenly extended his contract. And you know why? According to the latest info, the Munich club was terrified that City would come for their legend in 2027. They decided to act early to block Pep's potential successor. But who else besides Kompany? Who is even capable of replacing him? Let's be honest, you can count the worthy candidates on one hand. You don't just need a tactician. You need a visionary, a charismatic, young, and ambitious coach who isn't afraid of the pressure. And the coolest thing about all this is that Pep himself is ready to help the club find his successor. He and his staff will help the board pick not just the head coach, but the assistants too, to make sure the system keeps working. Guardiola built a house and wants to hand the keys to someone reliable that commands massive respect. So, on one hand, it's a logical and expected end to a great era. Pep's tired, he's won it all, and he wants to live for himself. On the other hand, there's the unpredictability of Guardiola himself, who has surprised us all more than once. Personally, I'm leaning towards this season really being the farewell tour. And for City and for the whole Premier League, it will be a colossal loss. Replacing a genius is practically impossible. But what do you think? Will Pep leave, or will he fool everyone again? And who do you think could replace him? Make sure to write your opinion in the comments. It'll be interesting to read. There's a whole messy situation brewing around Ibrahima Konate. The media is being torn in two. The Spanish press are screaming that he's already got one foot in Madrid, while other, more reliable sources say it's not that simple. The Spanish outlets Marca and AS, who we all know are basically Real Madrid's mouthpiece, are all singing the same tune. Konate is target number 1 for Madrid in 2026. His contract is up at the end of this season, and the Spanish giants are determined to get him for free. And most importantly, according to them, Liverpool have already given up and have mentally said goodbye to him. And this is where a detail pops up that makes you believe it. Why might Liverpool be okay with him leaving? Because it seems the club has been disappointed with his ability on the ball for a long time. Remember the City match? Well, according to insiders, Guardiola specifically told his players to leave the ball with Konate and then suddenly press him hard. They knew he'd cough it up, and he did. You know, when the best manager in the world builds his tactics around your mistakes, that's the worst possible verdict for a top club's defender. So, according to this version, the Liverpool board isn't losing any sleep over it and thinks they can easily find someone better on the market. Sounds logical, but a bit too perfect for the Madrid press, don't you think? And then, Fabrizio Romano swoops in with his info. And he's saying something completely different. Nobody has given up on anyone. Talks for a new contract are ongoing. Konate has just taken some time to think. Sporting director Richard Hughes is pulling out all the stops to prevent the player from leaving for free. And the club is confident it will all end well. So who do you believe? You probably need to believe in logic and business. And this is where the most realistic scenario comes into play. Liverpool are not idiots who would just let an asset worth tens of millions walk away. But they also don't want to give a fat, long-term contract to a player who could gift a goal at any moment because of his technique. So, according to the latest reports, the club is preparing a crafty offer for him. A short-term extension. For a year or a year and a half. What does this achieve? Everything. First, it protects his value. He won't leave for free, and if Real Madrid really want him, they'll have to pay. Second, it gives the club time to find a replacement without panicking if he doesn't start playing more consistently. And third, it's a test for Ibu himself. Want to stay and prove you're a top player? Here's your chance. Don't want to? Well, then we'll talk to buyers in the summer. Basically, Ibu is on thin ice. The club values his physique, but his play with his feet is a liability that opponents are already exploiting. The story about Real's interest is probably real, but Liverpool are playing their own game. They aren't going to let him go for free, but they won't keep him at any cost either. So we're waiting for an announcement of a short-term deal. That would be the smartest move in this tangled situation. The Liverpool leadership has reportedly concluded that their midfield still lacks the final component to be considered championship caliber, and they have entered the market with a maximally audacious objective. Their focus is on one of Europe's most intelligent and technically gifted players, the architect of the PSG midfield, Vitinha. It is an ambitious proposition, to be sure, but the substance lies in the details. According to Caught Offside, the Parisian club has already established a valuation at which they would be willing to even entertain a discussion, 130 million euros, not a definitive asking price, but the entry point for negotiations. We will now dissect whether this has any basis in reality and what Liverpool's strategic purpose might be. Let's begin with the rationale for their interest. It is quite simple. If you analyze Liverpool's current midfield, you see quality players like McAllister, Szoboszlai, and Gravenberch. However, none of them is a pure conductor. None possesses that elite-level press resistance and the innate ability to single-handedly dictate the tempo of a match. Arne Slot requires precisely this type of metronomic player as the central pillar of his possession-based system. Vitinha, within Luis Enrique's framework, has proven to be just that, the cognitive link between defense and attack. He represents the kind of upgrade that could elevate a very good midfield into the undisputed best in the league. However, this is where we run into the wall that is PSG, and at this point, all logic dissipates. What possible incentive do they have to sell him? None. Absolutely none. The player is in his prime, he is on a long-term contract until 2029, and he is a fundamental component of the team. They face no financial pressures and have no desire to let him go. Even in the highly improbable event that Liverpool were to meet the 130 million euro figure, what would PSG's next move be? They would enter the market for a replacement. And where does one find a player of Vitinha's quality? He is simply not on the open market. Any footballer of a comparable standard would command a similar fee of 100 to 120 million euros. So where is the net gain for the Parisians? It doesn't exist. Therefore, this valuation is nothing more than a polite deterrent, a do not disturb sign. And would Liverpool actually pay it? It is extremely improbable. This scenario is highly reminiscent of the Moises Caicedo saga, where Liverpool correctly withdrew when the bidding became irrational. The same outcome is expected here. So, in essence, this news is little more than strategic posturing. Liverpool are signaling their ambitions, demonstrating that they are targeting the highest echelon of players, but the reality is that PSG are in complete control. And this transfer appears entirely fantastical. It's a compelling narrative for the headlines, but that is all. Liverpool will need to search for their conductor elsewhere, for a more rational price. But the fact of their interest is a positive signal for the fan base. The club is aiming for the pinnacle. But what is your take? Could Liverpool actually be tempted to pay such a sum? Long story short, Vinicius Jr. has apparently decided to test Florentino Perez's resolve. The guy still hasn't renewed his contract, which runs out in the summer of 2027. That means next summer, Madrid will either have to renew it on his terms or sell him so they don't lose him for free. And now, according to insiders at Spanish outlet Sport, Vinicius has laid out his demands. He wants a salary on par with the club's highest paid player. That means Kylian Mbappe's level. Let's just run the numbers. Right now, the Brazilian gets 400,000 euros a week. That's almost 21 million euros a year. What Mbappe is on is a trade secret, but it's obviously way more. And this contract standoff seems to have hit a wall. No one wants to back down. And it looks like Real have already started working on a plan B. They've reportedly slapped a 150 million euro price tag on Vini for next summer. And you know who's already queuing up with bags of cash? That's right, the Saudi Arabian clubs. They're said to be ready to offer Vinicius an astronomical contract worth €1 billion. That would make him the highest paid player in the world by a massive margin. Of course, the Premier League clubs aren't sleeping, but it'll be tough to compete with those numbers. So you might ask, what's all the fuss about? Look, with Kylian's arrival, an interesting situation has developed in Madrid. The Frenchman is being used as a central striker, but we all know his ideal position is on the left. And who plays on the left? Vinicius. You can already see where this is going, can't you? Madrid might just see an opportunity here, sell the Brazilian at his peak value for 150 million, and use that money to rebuild the team around Mbappe. And that's where the shadow of Erling Haaland appears. Rumors have started that Madrid might pull off what seems like a genius move, sell Vinicius and bring in the Norwegian to replace him. This would give the attack that perfect balance. Mbappe moves to his favorite left wing, and you get a pure goal-scoring machine in the middle. On paper, the plan is out of this world. Right guys, quick pause here so you can smash the like or dislike button. Any feedback is important. Thanks for the support. It really helps the channel. Adding fuel to the fire is the fact that Vinicius, to put it mildly, isn't in the best form this season. Yes, he's a world-class player, no one's arguing that. But he's clearly been struggling in recent months. Plus his temperament, you know how it is. The tension between him and Xabi Alonso hasn't gone away. Sooner or later, the point of no return will be crossed. The Brazilian will lose his cool again, and that's it. Selling him could ease that internal tension at the club. Of course, there's the question of why Haaland would even want to change. He plays for one of the best clubs in the world, in the strongest league, has a solid salary, and a 10-year contract. What more could you want? But this is where the magic of the Real Madrid brand comes into play. It's some kind of subconscious thing. If you want to be truly great, to write your name in history in golden letters, you have to prove yourself in Madrid or Barcelona. By the way, about a swap for Haaland. In theory, it might not be that expensive for City. The value of Vinicius and Haaland is roughly the same, and their wages probably aren't that different either. And we all know these long-term contracts, like Erling's, are more of a formality and insurance for the club. They can be torn up just as easily as they are signed. What we have in the end is a perfect storm. Vini's contract drama, his poor form and difficult character, Mbappe eyeing up his position, and the looming figure of Haaland on the horizon. The Brazilian himself is still young. He has time to get his form and confidence back, but Real Madrid doesn't have that time. The summer of 2026 is getting closer, and Perez will have a tough choice to make. It looks like the saga of Vinicius' future is set to be next year's biggest transfer serial. Bayern are preparing a €75 million bid for Dani Olmo from Barcelona, and the first reaction is, are they even aware he spent more time in the doctor's office than on the football pitch over the last year? From Munich's point of view, there is some logic. Die Roten want to strengthen their attack. They need a versatile playmaker who can cover the wings and the number 10 role. Olmo, when he's fit, is perfect for that. According to Fichajes, the Bayern bosses have been watching him for months, and they're seriously impressed by his versatility and technique. So for them, he's a real target and they're ready to pay. 75 million euros is a proper statement of intent, and they see value in it. But now let's switch over to Barcelona, and this is where the questions start. Dani Olmo is, unfortunately, a walking disaster. Since his much-hyped return from RB Leipzig last year, when Barca shelled out a huge sum for him, the guy just can't stay out of the treatment room. He was meant to be a star, but he became the most expensive patient at the Catalan hospital. Just think about the numbers this season. 711 minutes on the pitch, only 13 games in all competitions. And the return? 1 goal and 2 assists. The player hasn't justified a single penny spent on him. So you might ask, what's the logic for Barcelona? Have the board gone mad considering selling a key figure, as Hansi Flick for some reason still calls him? And I'll tell you, no, it's simple. It's about money, huge money, and it's about Fermín López. Let's break it down. Barca's financial struggles aren't news, they're a meme. The club is constantly looking for ways to save and earn, and then an offer lands on the table. Not just any offer, a 75 million euro check for a player who spends most of his time with doctors. For Barcelona, this isn't just money. It's a potential turning point for their entire transfer strategy. Getting 75 million euros back for a 27-year-old with that medical record is a jackpot. With that cash, they can finally buy someone who actually plays football, not a patient. Plus, there's already a replacement. While Olmo is warming the bench and having checkups, Fermín López has suddenly started to shine as the attacking midfield leader. The kid delivers when he plays, and seeing that, the board could be very open to selling Dani. Why keep a super expensive and permanently injured player when you've got an academy graduate who's getting results right now? The logic is solid. Of course, the report doesn't say Barca are already packing Olmo's bags, but sources inside the club are hinting. Olmo's name is one of the most discussed when it comes to raising funds. And the most important part, the player himself. Dani is 27, prime age for a footballer, and he has a simple choice. Either he stays at Barcelona, where he has a contract until 2030 and fights tooth and nail for a place in Flick's project, constantly battling injuries and competition from López. Or he accepts the challenge and moves to Munich. And what's waiting for him in Munich? A central role at a top club that has wanted him for ages and is ready to bet on him. A return to the Bundesliga, where he once starred. Compared to his current situation at Barca, that looks like a massive upgrade. It seems Bayern are locked in on the player, despite all the risks. Barcelona seem happy to cash in on their problem asset. And Olmo has to decide what's more important, the dream of playing for Barca or a real career at another top club. Honestly, if I were him, I'd be brushing up on my German. Robert Lewandowski is prepared to end his football career. Indeed, if Barcelona do not offer him a new contract next summer, he is seriously considering the option of simply hanging up his boots. No move to Saudi Arabia, no lucrative MLS deal. Just the end. And this is the genuine position of a player who seems to be tired of the uncertainty. Let's examine how the situation reached this point. Lewandowski's future is the main topic of discussion in Catalonia. He is 37. His 4-year contract expires at the end of this season, and negotiations for an extension are at a complete standstill. Almost all Catalan sources are in agreement. Barcelona do not intend to offer him a new contract. And one might wonder, what is the problem? At his age, many players go to secure a final payday in Saudi Arabia. And naturally, there is interest from Saudi clubs. They would gladly offer him a huge sum of money. But this is where the story takes a turn. Robert is not attracted to that at all. He and his family are well settled in Barcelona, they enjoy the city, and he has no desire to move to an exotic league. His priority is to remain in Spain. So why has Barcelona decided to move on from their top goal scorer? Last season, he scored an impressive 42 goals. But this year has begun differently. Injuries, missing 4 matches, and a disrupted rhythm. He has only played 569 minutes in 12 games, which is an average of 47 minutes per match. But even with limited time, he has managed to score 7 goals. And his recent hat trick against Celta is direct proof that he is still a potent force. Very much so. At a press conference, Lewandowski himself was composed. I am in no hurry. What's important is how I feel at the end of the season. For now, I am focused on goals and titles. But the subtext is clear. He believes he still has a great deal to offer the club, and he is making an offer. Lewandowski is reportedly willing to take an unprecedented step for a star of his caliber. He is prepared to accept a reduced role in the team, He is willing to come on from the bench, act as a mentor to a new young forward the club signs, and receive less playing time. The main goal is to stay at Barcelona for another season. Frankly, to refuse such a proposal would be a questionable decision. The club would gain an experienced impact player and a mentor for its younger talent. But the management, namely Flick and Deco, remain silent for now. Their official position is, it's too early to make a decision, a classic delaying tactic. So Lewandowski essentially has three options. The first and primary one is to stay at Barca, even in a secondary role. The second, if Barca says no, is that he is seriously contemplating retirement. And there is a third, most unlikely option, to move to another top European club, but on one condition, so that his family does not have to relocate. This means it would have to be a club in Spain, and Atletico Madrid has emerged as a rumored potential suitor. In the end, the ball is entirely in Barcelona's court. They must decide what to do with a legend who is willing to compromise to stay. To let him go would mean either seeing him in the shirt of a direct competitor or becoming the club after which Robert Lewandowski decided to end his career. Neither prospect is particularly appealing, to say the least. Dominik Szoboszlai's performances have seemingly reached a level where both Real Madrid and Manchester City are taking notice. Diario AS reports that both clubs are closely monitoring the Hungarian international situation at Anfield. And while such reports could be dismissed as speculation, Liverpool's reaction suggests they are treating the interest with sincerity and are already preparing their counter-strategy. What is the basis for this high-level interest? Since his €70 million transfer from Leipzig, Szoboszlai has immediately established himself as one of the team's most influential players. Under Arne Slot, he has been indispensable. This season, he has already registered 6 goal contributions in 15 appearances. He is not just a workhorse, he is a creative force, capable of operating in multiple roles, whether deep in midfield, in a more advanced position, or even as a makeshift right back. He is a versatile and exceptionally industrious footballer. Unsurprisingly, this has not escaped the attention of Europe's elite. Guardiola is reportedly an admirer of his athleticism and his remarkable capacity for rapid adaptation, traits typical of a Guardiola player. Real Madrid, on the other hand, view him as a perfect addition to their midfield unit, a player with leadership qualities and an all-encompassing skill set. Their scouting network is thorough, and his name is clearly on their list of potential targets. However, the Anfield hierarchy is not being passive. Liverpool's management is fully aware that the better Szoboszlai performs, the more such suitors will emerge. And while his current contract, which runs until 2028, gives them a formidable negotiating position, they have opted for a proactive measure. The latest intelligence indicates the club is already preparing a new improved contract offer. It is rumored to be a deal extending to 2030 or even 2031, including a significant increase in salary. It's a shame no one offers me a similar long-term commitment for the fact that you watch my videos without subscribing. But as my shortlist remains empty, the best salary increase for me would be your subscription. It is free, yet it provides motivation, as if Liverpool themselves had tabled a contract. The Hungarian currently earns approximately €135,000 per week. While respectable, this is no longer commensurate with his market value and on-pitch influence. Liverpool are prepared to raise his wages to a point that would eliminate any thought of him looking elsewhere. This would serve as a direct statement: Dominik is a cornerstone of our long-term project, and that is final. Furthermore, any club that believes he can be easily acquired should reconsider. His current market valuation is around €85 million, but that is a figure for analysts. Should City or Real make a formal approach, Liverpool would undoubtedly demand a fee upwards of €100 million. This would effectively function as a hands-off warning. It is important to recognize that no immediate bids are expected. This is a long-term game of observation and positioning, but Liverpool, by acting first, appear to have already secured victory. The club's intention is to resolve the matter before it can escalate into a problem. Therefore, the interest from these European giants should be seen as a testament to Szoboszlai's quality and the effectiveness of Liverpool's scouting. The player is in the ideal environment and is a key figure. To exchange that for an uncertain future would be a highly questionable career move. We await official confirmation of a new contract, which now seems to be merely a matter of time.